And even though we have a few minutes, once again, let's take a moment to check on our motivation. It's a great time to check in with your mind. Check in with your mind. Just reflecting how the events at lunch, activities, how that went. How was the grasping? How was the aversion? Calmness in the mind, spaciousness. And also thinking of directing the mind the most positive way to help us reach that fully awakened state as a Buddha. But for the real purpose of benefiting all living beings. As best as you can, try to feel that motivation in your bones, running through your blood for all living beings, for the benefit of all living beings. For them, we have to wake up fully. They need us. So with that intention in mind, let's enjoy this afternoon. And I am going to take some comments and questions. I just want to go over one other thing is, if you're doing this reflection meditation, like even a walking meditation with awareness of everything you're experiencing coming from your mind. Okay. So then why do you get angry in daily life? Think about where anger comes from. You could say where fear comes from, attachment, where it comes from. And focusing more on anger. So no matter how much you study the philosophy, okay, the anger still comes. There's an imprint, subtle, gross imprint, okay, because you don't think it comes from the mind. You don't realize that you have a part of responsibility. You don't think that this life situation, that whatever happens, is it helpful to?
Yes, Miss Agnes.
You're good there? Do you want to? Because you can sit closer if you like.
Yeah.
So again, you don't think this life situation, whatever happens, okay, comes from the mind. Okay. Instead, somebody created it outside of me. Okay. Even if you believe in God or don't believe in God, okay, it's somebody else's fault. Somebody's doing it to me, somebody external, not me. They're doing it to me. So think about how often that arises in the mind. Okay. But again, it came from your mind, your karma. It's merely labeled. Okay. It's all hallucination. These are the different steps. Okay. Or that you at least think the karma comes from your mind. Then it's impossible to get angry. When you start thinking, let's think of the steps again. Okay. Because of karma, let's go back, basics. Because of karma, there is an appearance. Okay. Because of the karmic imprints of my mind, things appear. And think about it this way, on a bigger scale. So, you can talk about why the sun rises and sets. Why the sun rises and sets. This is something that happens every day. Whether it's cloudy out, whether it's winter, whether it's summer, apparently in our world system, the sun rises and sets at a certain different times based on the season. We know that. But every day we're experiencing that, right? Is anybody devoid of that? It's happening, right? Sun rises and sets. And they say, because the millions of people on this side of the planet have the karma to experience the sun rising, we never think about it that way. It's external. Scientifically, you can prove because the sun, you know, but all this whole world system, Buddhism says, comes from your mind. Okay, so let's go back. Because of karma, there is an appearance. That's number one. Here's number two. The mind labels and the object appears as that thing that the mind labels. The second way it arises, okay? The mind labels and then the object appears. The mind labels tanka and then the object appears as tanka. Okay. Number three, ignorance projects the hallucination of true existence on the merely labeled object. Okay, so again, this rectangular form appears. The mind labels on the object tanka, and then it appears as a tanka. And then what happens because of my ignorance, it appears as a truly existent tanka. That's a hallucination. That's not accurate. What there is a rectangular piece of cloth with a painting of a being in the middle, and my mind sees that configuration of data, of information. And according to being a human being in this particular tradition with a certain language, this place in time and space, this part of the world, then I've got some education, some information, and I put the label tanka on that. Okay, and then a tanka conventionally appears to my consciousness, merely imputed by the mind. Okay, but due to ignorance, what really appears to my mind is a concretely existing tanka there for all times, unchanging, concretely existing with its own nature, its own tanka-ness. Okay, now a tanka is somewhat mundane. Okay, but if that is my tanka and you gifted me with it and you come up and slash it with a knife, I might get upset. Okay, especially if it's your dog, your child, your house, your car, your partner, then you get very upset, especially if they're attacking you. Okay, but so we want to go back to this. So what happens is in this process, and we were talking about this earlier about difficulty of is the person out there, how can I be kind to them? So let's think about what our normal world does. You come up and attack me with a knife. This is extreme. This happens. You attack me with a knife. You're coming at me with a knife. Okay. Now, initially, you're alarmed. You don't have time to think. So the first thing we're going to try to do is you might scream. That can be helpful. Sometimes people jump in. You might run away. You know, I think I would try to get out of there as quickly as I could without harming anybody, just getting away from the knife. That would be, but here's the thing, getting away from the knife in my mind, more than getting away from the person with the knife. Now, the person with the knife, you might say, well, they're crazy, they're violent, they're dangerous, but them alone without the knife is slightly different than them with the knife. I want to get away from the weapon that can do injury. There's no question. Okay, but so that's your first reaction. You're going to be in a blind reaction, adrenaline crushing through you. So you try to get out of there, okay? And then if you can't, right, trying to deflect, trying to, you know, but in your mind, in the emergency, and it's an emergency, you know, is there any chance of loving kindness coming up? This person is severely disturbed. There's no question. Or let's say you get away from it. And how do you want to think about it later? So we're alarmed. You know, you're probably adrenaline crushing through you, sweaty, you know, your heart is pounding. But then later, slowly as you calm down, the next day, and you come back to sit on your cushion, how do you want to view that person? And this happens all the time. It can just happen with a nasty boss, like more mundane, like they're so irritating. Every time he opens his mouth, I just want to, you know, you hate going into work. You want to find another job. It can get pretty disturbing. Okay. So coming back, when you allow the negative thoughts to follow, when you allow them to go on and on, okay, doesn't it feed anger and disturbance in your mind? You have to check yourself. Does it feed anger and disturbance in your mind?
Yes.
Some people online, what do you think? Yes, people are. Okay, so notice the habit that you're creating. I hate them. It's them. They're a terrible boss. He's nasty. And you might even say, but everybody in the office feels the same way. So that adds to the inherent existence of him being nasty. Yeah. That's a trick of ignorance. That's just a trick like that. Okay, so this is what we're battling against constantly. Is, well, everybody did that. Everybody feels the same way. So he must be like that. Okay, take care. Look at your own mind. Again, it comes from your mind. Comes from your mind. You might find, surprisingly, so here's part of the thinking. If it's somebody really attacking us, look at the negative karma they're creating for themselves. Fortunately, I got away unscathed, safe. They did not attack me. Okay, nothing happened. I was able to get away and somebody restrained them. Okay, wonderful, great. But how do you want to think about them? You can, and so watch the hatred in your mind. I hate them. I know, maybe it's somebody you know. Somebody stole from you. Same thing. I'm never inviting them to my house again. I never want to be around them. How dare they? I don't want my kids going over to their house. They're evil. I'm going to tell all of our neighbors. So notice that mechanism in your mind. How do you feel? Do you feel spacious? Do you feel good? Is all of it accurate in your mind? Are you sure you got it all right? Just keep looking. So that's one way that we tend to manage on our planet. Power, greed, inaccurate information in our mind, helplessness, not taking responsibility for my mind, my karma. Okay. And then you can try a different thing. Okay, this was really disturbing. Yep. Whether it's your boss or whether somebody attacking you, very disturbing, somebody stealing from you. And I do want to check in the future to make sure that I'm safe, my belongings are safe, that I'm acting reasonably in our house. You know, I might decide to invite the person over again if they were stealing, but I'll make sure they're not alone in a room. That's okay. That's reasonable. Okay. But how do I want to view the person? Are they evil? Are they inherently evil? Are they? So this is a person that may have more disturbances than us, the fact that they're harming or doing things like that. Okay. Look at the mess they're making in their own lives if they're going on in reality living like this. So where's our compassion? It's really hard if somebody feels like they should pull a knife on you and slash you. That's a pretty sad place to be in their mind. And also somebody who wants to steal from you. You know, really ungenerous place to be. And they're maybe I could even say, even though it's not a comparison thing, that they're more confused than I am. I'm confused because I don't have a direct perception of emptiness, but I'm not going to steal from anybody. I'm trying not to. Yeah. But haven't you taken something sometimes that wasn't offered? Yeah, I've done that. Haven't you borrowed sometimes something that you didn't ask the person if you could borrow it? Yeah, those are acts of stealing. Those are little acts of stealing that add up. It's that little stuff we do. So could this have come from that kind of participation in my karma? These little things, like it's coming from my mind. So the person is manifesting in a certain way from my mind, past deeds I've done, right? It would be nice to have some compassion for them of what they're creating for themselves. I may have created this for myself. So I want to be very careful not to keep doing any activities like that. I can make a determination in my mind at that time not to do any activities like this. But if I'm seeing the person, especially the person with the knife, as inherently existent, well, it was big and scary. Yep. Okay. But again, that concreteness to them is a hallucination. Keep reminding yourself that is a misknowing of reality. Simply the karma created an appearance from my mind labeled attacker on them. Okay, that's what we would call somebody conventionally like that. And it's a hallucination if I see them as inherently existent, if I'm not seeing them as merely imputed on this being. Complete hallucination. And let me continue to activate compassion for this being who could suffer much worse. Notice your mind. Is there more space in the mind? And you have to check yourself. So think of some examples in your life, in your mind, everyday examples. Same thing with your boss. Same thing with the boss. They're so irritating. I hate going to work. All these things pile up, making him or her more concrete. You build it up so much, they're like a demon. You come in, you can't hear anything. They might even be offering you a cup of coffee, but you hate them. So even that is irritating. When all they're doing is offering you a cup of coffee, genuinely, they want to take you out to lunch. Okay, so again, how do we create the spaciousness? Deflection, slowly. I created the karma, it came from my mind. This particular appearance of boss, my mind labels on them evil boss, okay? That means an evil for all time, that's a hallucination. They're not concretely existingly evil. Nothing exists like that, okay? It's simply a manifestation from my mind. My mind creating this out of something that is merely labeled coming from my karma. Okay, so if I am more gentle with the boss, if I work daily on speaking respectfully to the boss, trying to follow the instructions they gave, or if we don't like the instructions and they're unhealthy, can I present that in a positive, constructive way to the boss to see if any changes can be made? And here's what we do. We do what we can, right? So I'm going to constructively find a way to discuss. And if it escalates where they're so insistent and so toxic, then I have an idea of getting some people in my office together as a group to present to the boss in a respectful, constructive way. Because this all this virtuous speeds creates more virtue in my mind. Okay? And then the boss has refused again, continues the toxicity. So I'm decide as our group, we're going to go to the HR department, the human resources department, discuss with them. These are the chains we have available. Discuss with them. They take it up. They discuss with the boss. The boss refuses to make any changes, or the human resources department doesn't see it as a problem. And then what are your choices? Continue to stay in this sort of environment, working on your purification on your own internally, Vajrasattva practice, something like that, working on continuing to practice virtue. And my other option is I can get another job. This is reality. This is what we do. We're going to face some stuff. Sometimes you decide, this is too much. I have to get out of this relationship. Or you just continue working. And if you continue working, cleaning up your karma, your whole relationship with the boss can change. Seriously, I've had that happen for me in a positive way. Or you decide, I can't do this anymore. I've done all I can do. And I'm making a decision and I'm going to find another job. And then what happens is if you've dismantled enough in your mind to create that boss, you can get another job that may be healthier. If you haven't dismantled enough, you get another job and the same situation comes up. Then you keep working on it. What are the options? What are your options? So let's think about the spaciousness of that rather than the anger and the hanging on. And it's always, my life is like this and I'm useless and I'm worthless. And so check, where does that get you? That thinking. Where does that get you? And this is the kind of way we have to work in daily life. And it's a little bit of a grind that we have to keep showing up like this, but this is how your mind changes. Am I communicating?
Actually, CB raised the hand earlier a few times,
Great.
but I'm not sure whether.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to go through this because this is really the crux of this kind of work. And I know I keep repeating stuff, but this is where we have to do it. And this isn't, I'm not talking about some high level philosophy this is everyday life of everything comes to mind. We have to start thinking about this and working with it. CB.
Yes, hi. I had a question. I mean, if someone is truly like selfish or mean or has an intention really to hurt you, why is it necessarily wrong to label that person as selfish or mean, but in a conventional way? Yes, this person is selfish, is mean. Doesn't mean that that person is inherently selfish, inherently mean, but is conventionally mean, and due to cause and conditions, that person is mean and selfish. Is there something wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with that. You can label them that. Absolutely. We certainly identify people rather than getting overly negative in your mind and in your speech. sometimes I've labeled people extremely challenging.
Mhm.
You know, for me.
Yeah.
For me, you know, I'm not gonna say this is your experience, this is yet, you know, Yenny's experience or Sylvie's experience, but I will say, and we've had communities at Dharma centers. I'll give you an example. And these are residential Dharma centers, but you also have it at city centers. And so we, you know, this maybe not was the most generous way to think about it, but we had some guests come, retreaters, and some of them would book a cabin for 3 weeks. So they're living with us, but in a separate cabin. We would deliver food, we would get messages from them of things they needed, okay? And we would sometimes, as a staff, it was a repeat person that was very challenging, and our staff would, we'd have weekly staff meetings, and we wanted to know who's coming and who's this, and what do we need to prepare for? And they would say, so-and-so, the name, our most precious guest is coming. That's you know, our most special retreater. And that was a trigger that, like, okay, buckle your seatbelt. This is a difficult person. So again, you can choose how you want to label. For me, in my own language, labeling very hostilely, kind of heavy, creates a little bit of that in my mind. So I'd be like, yeah, this person challenges me more than other people. This person we found as a community, even collectively, this retreater was really challenging. And they challenged us on every front, like the food wasn't good and the cabin wasn't good and they didn't like the delivery. And, you know, it was a challenge. But challenge is also different because you can kind of step up to the challenge. And so we would actually work with our minds to kind of say, okay, like, you know, so if you're looking at this as coming from my mind, this challenging being, you know, then I might have to do a little bit more work on it. So yeah, you could label them that, CB. I don't think it's, you know, but just see if there's heavy labels of negativity.
I think what you're saying is that, I mean, since they're not inherently mean or inherently selfish, by labeling it maybe with a more softer label, it helps our own mind.
It can help your own mind. You check. It can help your own mind rather than I could really go off into some really negative speech right now about, you know, you could just say like, you know, all the, rather than saying, and there are times when we'd say to somebody, you're filling staff in on someone and you'd say, you know, this person is really, really self-absorbed. You know, they're just really, it's a lot about them. Okay, that's not so heavy, but just giving people, like if you're saying somebody's challenging, some of the staff might wanted to know what are they challenging? Like what's their issue? And we'd say this woman's overly critical, or this person smells, you know, whatever the thing is that you could, you know, there's different ways of, but that's my feeling. See how it works in your mind if you're really getting into the kind of, he's a totally jackass jerk of whatever, you know, how does your mind feel about those labels?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Check. Yenny, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I thought, what I do in such a case is thinking that person is not different from me. He somehow, in some way, well, it doesn't make him happy, but he thinks it's making him or her happy.
Mm.
So, and then you have more, wat is begrip? You can understand more.
Yes, more understanding and empathy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and we're going to get into some of the, this is a very key thing of how do I view other people to work with it. Fantastic about. So again, everything's a mirror out there coming from our mind. So everything's showing you something. The beautiful lilacs, what a wonderful karmic arisal of something virtuous in my mind, wonderful. But the thing is, if I just choose to smell them for me, then that's going to use up that merit more quickly. If I smell it and enjoy that scent so much and then decide to offer it in my mind very quickly to all the beings and all the beings that would never smell lilacs, and all the beings that are in war-torn places and suffering and under horrible regimes that, you know, and so if you have that thought again, leaving yourself and thinking of others, could be a little bit more virtuous layering on the mind. And so also thinking this person is not, that, you know, equanimity. So this is equalizing, exchanging oneself for others is another tack of practice. I'm not any different from them. I've been very self-absorbed at times. I've come into situations, been very challenging. Absolutely. So you have more empathy, more spaciousness of heart of, and this person's really struggling. I've struggled as well. And when you're struggling like that and you're in that situation, you know, I was one time thinking of this nun in South India. She was from England or something. I can't remember, from Europe or England. And she was manifesting in a very intense way that put a lot of people off. We were at these big thing of teachings, and there was this issue, and she was very, and I realized her desperation was because she just wasn't well supported. It was very, you know, Western nuns are not that well supported in general. So she was kind of didn't have an adequate place to stay initially, and all these monks were taking care of, Western monks, but nobody gave her a room. They kind of left her out. You know, she didn't have enough money because people make less offerings to nuns than they do to monks. Something that Venerable Gendon brought up to me, but it's true. I'm like, yes, that's very true. And, you know, all these things that go on, and after a while, as a Western nun, you get tired of, and you're doing all these things for yourself, and other people are fully supported, and you're kind of wrestling with it. And then sometimes you just get tired and desperate. And so I suddenly realized in her where that was coming from, and had a lot more spaciousness around her, and then found her to be quite pleasant when other people were struggling, and just could see what she was going through. And then she became kind of a whole person. Because when somebody's inherently existently evil, you only see a part of them. And we all have that, you know, until we're an Arya being, we all have that in us. Some negative stuff goes on. Some self-cherishing comes up, of course, you know, it's operating all the time. And so, yeah, I think that's a good way to, okay, so let me, so again, I want to just discuss 3 ways in which things come from the mind. So just, again, the mind merely imputes it. Okay, without the mind labeling it, it doesn't exist. The label also comes from the mind. Without the mind labeling it, it doesn't exist like that. Okay, a second way to think that all this is not, a second is to think that all this is not merely labeled by the mind, but that it exists from its own side. That it exists from its own side. So not only that, but you see it, once you label it, you see it as truly existent. We see it as not labeled by the mind. Okay, both what exists, meaning what is merely labeled, okay, and what does not exist, which is what appears to be truly existent, comes from your mind. Okay, so let me go through that again. This is about 3 ways in which things come from the mind. And I'm talking about comes from, you know, a mind with contaminated aggregates. So again, the mind imputes something, but the second way is to think that what I'm seeing right now is not merely labeled by the mind. It exists from its own side. That's another way stuff comes from a contaminated consciousness that sees what is merely labeled as truly existent. That's false. So what I said before was both what exists, okay? So what is it that exists? Buddhism says is what's merely labeled by the mind, okay? What does not exist? And remember this, what does not exist is that hallucination of what appears to be truly existent. That's a hallucination, what appears to be truly existent.
1 or 2 are the same.
That's the same. I mean, I'm just spelling out the
same.
second
Okay,
way that
yeah.
things appear from the mind. Okay, and the third way is karma. The longer explanation is that Rinpoche says the long haul view is it comes from karma. Okay. So for anybody who sees this flower, it comes from their karma. Anybody who sees this sentient being comes from their karma. The view of you that I see comes from my karma. The view that you have of me comes from your karma. So let's meditate a little bit. This is a meditation in this course. The 3 ways in which things come from the mind. Let's just think a little more deeply about this. Just find a comfortable position. And just bring your awareness to a normal, natural breath. Think about how things come from the mind. The mind merely imputes it. The mind labels. Think about what you label in the space around you. You put a name on everything around you. And then it's there. And the label also comes from the mind, based on your language, based on the realm that you live in, human realm. We have labels, and we have the labeling process coming from the mind. Think about it. Where else does it come from? Now, you can have an agreement. Two people agree on a label. That's our conventional reality. Now, take one of the things that you imagine that in your realm that you're labeling. Some object comes to mind. Could be another person in the room. Could be something on your desk. You label it, you designate from your mind. Now, when you look at it, and feel free if you want to open your eyes and look at something, look at the object. Does it appear to be merely labeled by your mind? Or does it feel to be truly existent? Look how you see it as truly existent, not labeled by the mind. So you have two things going on here right now in this second point. Second way that things come from the mind is you have what exists of that object, which is what is merely labeled by the mind. And then what does not exist is what appears to you to be truly existent. That also comes from your mind, from the ignorance of your mind. Your ignorance decorates it. So again, what appears to be truly existent, that doesn't exist. But it comes from your mind. Look at how you hold that object as truly existent. That's what causes your suffering. Look at your hold on that object. What if I took the object away from you now? What if I harmed the object? How would your mind be? If I thought it was merely labeled coming from my karma, how would that help? And a third way things come from your mind, there's karma. The long haul view, karma. This action, this intention, this movement of your mind. So if you see this object, you see this person, comes from previous imprints in your consciousness, causing you to see them, to see this object in a certain way. Not an inherently existent being or thing out there. Because they'd never be able to change. And don't some of your relationships with people change over time? Sometimes they're really annoying. Sometimes you find them so endearing, so treasured and precious. How is that possible if they inherently exist outside of you, coming from something else? So just reflect in conclusion. Everything is merely labeled by the mind and then appears as that. Everything is then covered by the hallucination of true existence. Again, everything is then covered by the hallucination of true existence. And everything comes from karma. Everything comes from karma. That intention, that mind. The movement of your mind. Please relax. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So it helps to do these exercises over and over and over, to keep soaking your mind in the thought, soaking your mind, and especially when you have a problem, when the suffering arises a little bit more strongly in your life, of what's really happening here. So I can't emphasize enough having a formal meditation practice to bring it back to, So later, and again, I was using an extreme of somebody attacking you with a knife, but then there's the boss, or there's just entanglement with someone at your kid's school, a teacher you don't like, somebody at work you don't like, a neighbor causing problems. So then you come back to that meditation space. And then you get to really investigate what happened. They seem so solid at the time. Their activities seem so solid at the time. I can't believe they said those words to me. I can't believe they acted like that. I can't believe how ungenerous, how self-absorbed they are. These are words that you feel. You've seen this with many people around us. We can look at world leaders. Right now, we're having, as you know, a lot of struggles in the United States, obviously, due to some of the leadership. So when I speak to my friends there, especially the ones that live in very liberal parts of the United States, they're completely freaked out and very opinionated and very polarized. It's him. He's doing this to us. Like they'll say, it's this person over and over. Okay, so it's always separate from their own experience. Some of these people are not Buddhists. Okay, but that's their whole thing. And then I've been at, dinners with some friends out before I came, on the teaching tour. We didn't intend to have a political conversation. It didn't start that way, but it goes into that street, right? And then you hear all the opinions around the table. So Americans are very opinionated, right? So my opinion is more important than yours. You need to hear me. I can see this is the way some of them posture. Some are a little louder than others, okay? I'm not laying a trip on white men, but the white men tend to get a little bit more airtime. They just do. I notice this. I watch this in the thing. They speak and everybody stops, and then this woman, small woman over here says something and everybody ignores her. I've seen this many times. Why is it like that? It's coming from my mind. Just, so you don't get so tangled in them. But I watch a lot of these scenes. Sometimes I'm not even saying it, I'm just observing. It's fun as a Buddhist because you can observe. Seriously, I find it sometimes really entertaining to kind of go, wow, look, like he's got all the power at this table. And I'll just sit there watching and going, okay, she's going to say something. Okay, nobody really listened to her. That comment just kind of went right out. Okay, now this one's speaking up. This one's married to that one, so that gives her an edge. Like there's dynamics, but you're just watching. But again, I'm gonna back up. This scene is coming from my mind. Okay, so I've been opinionated in different talks. I used to work in politics. You have all these. So, but then I find after a while, it's not peaceful. And people raise their voice. They need, like, she didn't really hear me, so I need to speak louder. And you just watch this happen, and then you have a nice dinner party, but now it's like, do we need to talk about that? And we talk about some people that, frankly, I find not only tiring, but creates a little tension in here in me personally. So can we talk about something else? It's not like denial. I'm not being in denial. But again, in my own life, the reason I feel comfortable not to speak about too much of these things is again, go back to Master Shantideva, that His Holiness quotes, ask yourself, you've got a situation going, then ask yourself, what can I do about it? Make your list. What do you want to do about it? What's realistic for you to do that's peaceful, wise, not about getting other people and harming other people. If there's a political regime in my country, there's a list of things I can do. I'm not saying it's going to change anything, but that's what I feel like I can realistically do. So I engage in some of those things. I know what I can do. I know what I like to do and what I feel is beneficial with a good motivation. And I do those things. And the rest of it, I let it go because there's nothing I can do about it. Right? And then I practice Dharma. I fuel my practice with it. There's nothing you can do. You can take care of your mind. That's what we have to do. Does it make sense? Am I communicating? So what it does is it deflects my anger because at this table, this dinner I'm talking about, a couple of people got really angry. These are all friends. We're having a nice dinner out. This is supposed to be relaxing. But people get angry. I saw people get angry at a Monopoly game. Do you know the game Monopoly?
Yeah.
They haven't, oh my goodness. You know, some years ago, we played one just with, this was like supposed to be relaxing. Somebody said, let's play Monopoly. They get the game out. Couple of kids are with it, you know, whatever. Okay, it's fun. It's a game.
Yeah.
Hello. Halfway into it, two people start arguing, you know. You're always like that. You always have to have all the, you know, like, I'm like, it's a game. But there's heavy imputation
Yeah.
on the true reality, like totally invested. Like this is, you know, this politician is inherently always going to be like that. We know that from Trump that he's not, because he used to be a Democrat. He had a whole other regime.
Yeah.
Well, he changed, you know, but he's changing all the time. Like that, but it comes from my mind. By the way, I created him. Right? Or any of these, it's not just me, but we have a collective karma. If you have certain leaders, your regime, this thing, just like that. But then I can go to the dinner and I can be pleasant and happy, and it happens all the time. So we have to keep working on this every day. This is, you know, I mean, here, Rinpoche even says, dedicate an entire day to one mindfulness practice about this. As you go about your normal activities, try to bring this mindfulness that everything comes to your mind as often as you possibly can. Look at Rinpoche's words. You can go in, you know, to do the, you know, just to think about this, that everything comes from karma, everything comes from, just slowly take an hour of your day and really try to spend an hour when you have the time. Take 15 minutes, but just try to look at things from that way. You know, sometimes at a business meeting, I used to do that. I'd sit back. When I was a new Buddhist, or even I was doing it at the CPMT meeting. So people were, the recent meeting, we had a coupon, and I would just watch in the room who was commenting, who always had their hand up, who was presenting, how the presenters did, you know, just separate. And because it's just my mind. And then my friend next to me that was sitting next to me, she sometimes would have a different take on a certain presentation. And we go back to our room and discuss. And I said, oh, I really love that. I thought that was so great. And she's like, well, she had da 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 da. And then one time she thought it was great. And I went, oh, I'm so bored with having to hear that over and over. Like, where's it coming? Coming from my mind. Same person saying the same words. Then you really see it's coming from my mind. So then you have a little bit more reassurance. Question, please.
Yeah, now I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I think it's what is collective karma? Yeah.
Collective karma could be, for instance, on the planet right now, there's certain world leaders we're all experiencing. Now you're going to experience, if you live in the Netherlands, a little bit more with your leaders in the Netherlands. In the United States, when I'm there, we have other leaders that are there, as they have all over Europe and the rest of the world. But it's interesting because of global politics and all those dynamics, certain leaders, everything affects everybody else. So we have a collective karma right now to, first of all, have global warming on our planet. Would you agree with that? We're all experiencing that, I think. Some countries are obviously experiencing it worse than we are here and different places, but I've noticed it because I travel, I see it happening everywhere. There's certain weather systems that have changed. I spent last year in the Himalayan mountains, 4 months, 4 to 5 months. So I experienced, well, about 5 months or so. And what I noticed, unfortunately at Laudo, this place very high up near Mount Everest, where I did retreat for a while. I've been up there for years. I've spent probably 3 to 4 years of this life there. And over the years, so this time there's a big sacred mountain behind Laudo that kind of protects that area. And there's a deity you can kind of see on the side of the mountain called Kumbhayela, and he protects. And you a little bit in certain, with the sun in a certain direction, you a little bit can make him out. And he has a medallion. He wears a medallion, a big necklace kind of here, a round circle that a little bit you can see. So Anila Rinpoche's sister, who's there, and I always know, and I always kind of, I find the mountain quite strong, and I just feel like there's some kind of a relationship with this mountain over the years. And so we were looking up at one point after my retreat and looking up, and she said, and I said, I've never noticed less snow all over. in general, the snow line was much higher than I'd noticed it before over the years, and it's much warmer up there now. I mean, it's still cold, but it's much warmer. And then she said, yes, Kumbhayela, the deity, the first time this season, the medallion didn't have snow on it for the first time ever in her lifetime. She's 83. So we're experiencing it everywhere. You know, you just see signs with our plain eyes like that it's happening. So that collectively, we're all experiencing that together. We all have a seed in our consciousness, some karma to have global warming, live on a planet with a situation like that. And whatever situations we're all going through together like that. Does that make sense?
There's a question by Vivian.
Yes, please.
I don't actually have a question, but just an interesting way of being able to see an object as the base without its label. And I found it completely by accident. And that is the name, repeating the name over and over and over and over until it becomes meaningless. And then I found that I would see the object without its label because the label had become meaningless. I don't know if anybody else had did it with a word that I didn't really understand, or I think I found it interesting. And I just kept repeating it over and over and over again. And suddenly the object completely lost its label. I just thought that might be an interesting exercise.
It is. I've heard of people doing that before. I've even tried that myself, and sometimes it loses that luster of a concretely existent thing. Yeah, that's interesting to try like that.
It's really hard to do otherwise.
Yes, yes. And for me, I really like the thing of everything's already defined pretty much is what we're saying. But that time when my friend, I often go back to that example when she held up this thing that I couldn't see clearly, as a result, didn't have a label for it, didn't know, labeled it something else. But as a result, any plumbness around it was gone because I could go back to the hockey puck and go, there's no plumb, there's no plumb. The basis was different. And so sometimes labeling, you could try that as well, just to loosen our hold on the concreteness of everything around us. Yeah, thank you. Interesting. So once again, just a little mindfulness exercise right now. You can try a little mindfulness. Once again, just reflect on this. Every single thing is karma. Every single thing is karma. So this is from Rinpoche. I think that every single thing that we see is karma. Every single thing comes from your karma. So let's think about this. Whatever forms you see, as you look around your space, look around the room, whatever forms you see, okay? Odors you smell. There's always some odors in the space that comes from the karma. Sounds you hear. Taste you taste. And tangibles you touch. So this is how we relate to our world. Okay, all those sense faculties are firing all the time, bringing in information, interacting with information, experiencing things. Rinpoche goes on, every single form you can think that you see comes from your karma, comes from your mind. Unpleasant things come from your negative thoughts and actions. How does that feel to you? Put that in your mind. See how you feel about that. You don't just listen to the words and do it as if some separate God is. You have to take it yourself and cook it. So you have to see how you feel about it. You try it on the exercises. Again, unpleasant things come from your negative thoughts and actions. Pleasant things come from your positive thoughts, from a healthy mind. They came from you, from your mind. So it's just a little exercise that you can do, mindfulness. Very, very helpful. So I ask you, when you leave here today, please try to practice this the rest of your day, tomorrow morning before we meet again. Just a nice little mindfulness exercise as you're going through that. Again, negative things come from the negative activities you've done in your mind. Pleasant things, something positive, virtuous in your mind. Everything comes from your mind, from your karma. Just keep layering that on the experiences. And here's a second mindfulness Rinpoche talked about earlier in the video. Everything is a movie that comes from karma. Karma's projected onto that movie screen of your life. So everything's like a movie, okay? When you drive in a car, some of you may take a car out of here today. You're on the train. You're on a metro. You're on the tram, okay? Whatever you see that goes by, trees, street, people, houses. It's like a movie. It is a movie that comes from your karma. So think about the movie you're making right now, the movie you're continually creating. We'd like it to be a happy film, pleasant, healthy film. How do I do it? Practicing virtue. Practicing virtue. Positive, habituating myself, positive things I think, positive things I say, positive things I do, as much as possible. But I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to mess up. Okay. Then I purify. We're going to do Vajrasattva tomorrow. Then I purify. Okay. Learn from it. Learn what kind of triggers, what created me making this mistake. And just keep trying to create positive. Understanding, once again, is a movie from my karma, from my mind. Okay, are we okay? I mean, people understand a little bit. Is this useful? Is this helpful? It's not easy. I know it's not easy. Okay,
Question by CB.
yes, please.
Yes, is it possible to do like a concrete example? Like I was thinking, okay, I'm seeing this computer. This computer comes from my karma, which means that it was my karma to be born in the 20th century and to be born in the century where there were computers and to be born in a country where, is that kind of the explanation of
Yes.
why this computer comes from my karma?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you can certainly look at it that way. Like, and what an advantage. I have an advantage. I have a great computer. Somebody bought me. And, you know, incredible karma unfolding. Comes from my mind. The fact that all that happened comes from my mind. And so it's also about appreciating the karmic manifestation we're having when it's pleasant. We have a very pleasant thing in the Netherlands. Oh my goodness. You know, do we appreciate? Now, granted, right, like Yenny's going, no, because many people in my culture and your culture, they're somewhat similar. Okay. I think your culture honestly has a little bit better, quite a bit better in some regards. So, but what happens is we have food, clothing, shelter, relatively nice quality of that. We have relatively good air to breathe, nice water to drink out of the tap, pleasant trees, flowers, a nice environment. People are generally friendly and pleasant. That's fantastic. But still what happens is people complain.
Yeah.
It's just nature. It's human nature. It's human nature of wanting it. And I always think it's maybe human nature of our wanting to evolve a little bit more fully and wanting to improve things. Then I see it as not, you know, but people complain too much and don't appreciate because they don't do meditation on something called precious or perfect human rebirth to see how good you have it. So the fact, CB, you mentioned like we can have a nice computer and I can have internet and I can communicate with friends far away and do a class with people in on another continent is incredibly advantageous. Really, really helpful. So can I continue to dedicate all that merit, creating that to make more and conduct myself in a positive way as much as possible? But yeah, everything you see, like we created this great situation that you guys probably, I would say in the Netherlands, got a little bit on one level a better edge than I got being a citizen of the United States, just from some basic stuff of higher education is very, very expensive in the United States. So people, it's unaffordable for some people now. Where here you make it much more affordable. You have a much better healthcare system that's more affordable. So we're missing those two key components in the States right now. It's a mess. Seriously, right? As far as those things, you know, fortunately, I got through my higher education when it was affordable, like that. But now it's getting to be really just, you know, you're either rich or poor, like that, and the healthcare system's really a mess. So again, so you got a very good situation, and just keep figuring out virtue to create more and more of that, so that better lives, the next life is better imprints in your mind. You know, more abilities to practice Dharma. So somebody in here told me at the break, they don't have to work right now and they just have freedom to practice Dharma. Like they live in a little bit of a pure realm, I would say. Because we have kind of Buddhist pure realms, and what it means is it's not really part of the human realm, but you can create a cause through a lot of practice and a lot of virtue to go to, it's not really even a heaven, they're called pure realms. And they're defined as places where you have every perfect condition to practice Dharma, full support, and there's really not so much of a need of food and mundane things, because you're just like a light being that's just trying to practice Dharma. You're close to getting enlightened. So it's really the people that I know that don't have to work anymore. They're either have enough money, independently wealthy, or they're retired and they set themselves up and they have long periods of time they can practice. And some of them, if you're younger, even better, because you just have all that time to just roll it out, and they're really making use of the time. So it's something to think about setting yourself up for. It takes a lot of virtue, and in the meantime, what we do is we practice as much of the time as we have. You know, if you have to work, no problem. At least you have a job and you have the good situation to live, and you can make little retreats in your home, come here to do some retreats, things like that. And we can do stuff like that. So it's really amazing when you can set something up. You know, I was you know, really strong last year that I'm going to Laudo for 4 months of this solo retreat I wanted to do. And then I had another month as well doing something else. But it took me, I had to set it up a year in advance to really make sure that whatever teachings and also the emails that I was telling people, like, I'm going to be offline as of this date to this date, get it all ready, you know, so there's no excuses, because there will always be excuses to take you away from practice. There's always excuses. So it takes a lot to set it up, but be very insistent sometimes. Insistent, not so much in a selfish way, but with a good motivation that I knew I needed to do these retreats that have been told to me to do, you know, at some point I need to get them in. And so finally I found the period and went, okay, this looks like a good time. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
How we can, you know, we all try in our own way like that. Okay, so this was another thing. Let me just go on for a minute. This is, I think Yenny asked this question when or somebody's annoying you. Okay, choose what others want. You ready for this? Instead of what you want. How does this work?
Yeah.
This is a great exercise in mind control, in bodhicitta, but you please check your mind. How do you feel after practicing? Again, choose what others want instead of what you want. Okay, in daily life, this is from Rinpoche, in daily life, rather than fighting, rejecting, and blocking other people's happiness and cherishing me, okay, rather than trying to achieve your own happiness, okay, with your mind becoming very emotional, very negative. Okay, so notice when that's happening, getting angry, getting worse and worse into that anger mind stream that creates more imprints of the anger mind stream. Okay, that causes me to engage in more and more negative karma. Instead, can you cut that? Okay, and make a decision, make a firm commitment in your mind. I'm going to choose the other person's happiness. I'm going to make sure the other person's happiness happens, that's more important. I'm going to focus on that, what they wish. Okay. Now, this is not about harm. Well, the stabber wants to stab me, so let me just stand here. No, be reasonable. Be reasonable. But there's so many instances all day long where, there I was, like jostling at the grocery store with a lot of people. Suddenly we're, okay, get out of the way. Why does it have to be me first? No, I was here at this machine. Why? You back up. Suddenly I had all the space. I backed up. Nobody waiting here. Now, I wasn't in a rush. Okay. But these people, very, a little bit posturing, you feel people. Well, please let them go. Then they're happy. They turned around. They smiled at me. I smiled back. Now we have nice connection. They're happy. I'm happy. So that vibration goes out there on the planet. What's the big deal? So many times you do it. Your seat on the tram, your seat on the metro, you're getting off. Everybody gets to the door. Why do I have to be first? What am I going to be 2 seconds later because they got off first? You see everybody. I was amazed, New York City. There's a lot of people there. Metro subway system is old. It's always dirty, but it works. It gets you. It's late often, but I'm amazed how if you're there at rush hour, not a time to take the subway, avoid that. At rush hour, the trains are packed. There's a lot of people. They're packed here, I'm sure, but there's less people. They're packed. The doors open, but it's jammed. I see people hurling themselves. I saw people. They run and they throw themselves into the car. I've watched this many times. I'm like, what, are you crazy? Now, granted, they might be desperate because 3 trains just came by fully packed. That happens, okay? But you see people, and they're pushing other people, and I've seen it at airports, trying to get into that, So just see when it's possible, and you have to gauge, because sometimes you're in a hurry. Okay, you can just sometimes say, I'm so sorry, I'm late for, communicate with people, connect with people. We get afraid, we get kind of shut down. Certain cultures are more like that. Okay, so again, choose someone else's happiness over your own by consciously deciding to make at least a small sacrifice for the sake of someone else by doing what makes them happy. Try it. Try it tonight. Try it tomorrow morning. Try it for the rest of the weekend. Try it for the rest of your life. Okay, but really check. But then you have to check. How do you feel? What happened? Did it work? How did it, And I don't have an expectation that they're going to turn back and smile at me. I don't wait for that. That's not why I'm doing it. But often they do. They turn around and they'll go, thanks so much. Because we're drivers in the States. We drive a lot. I love that. You let somebody in and they turn around and, it's just a nice connection. I do it to other people if they let me in. So we have a connection now. I acknowledge you. Thank you. You helped me. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. It's a nice energy to send out there. Okay, many ways to do. So everybody okay? We're going to do all this, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget. Okay, appearances come from karma. Okay, and again, from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Every single thing, I just want to ask, do we need a short break or everybody, how are people doing? Continue. Okay, we're okay to continue till 4? Everybody okay? Okay. Every single thing you see is from your own karma. I know we're repeating a lot, but this is the crux of the course. When you walk on the road, go to the cities and walk around, every single thing, the view you have comes from your karma. Whatever appears to you, all that comes from your karma. It's very good to think it comes from my mind. Think that about every single thing you see, every single thing you experience.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
How does that relate to the collective karma? Because I once had a colleague who was getrouwd, married.
Mhm.
They couldn't get children. They were practically 10 years busy to get 2 girls adopted.
Okay.
The girls came from Haiti, Hawaii. And someday they flew over there to get them. They were all 4 in the hotel room. Earthquake, all 4 dead.
Oh. Wow.
How does that? How do you
How is it
get that together? The
How do you-
collective karma of the earthquake, of the people there, and then he from the Netherlands.
But what do you think? You know the answer to that, right?
Yeah,
Where does it come from?
earlier lives.
It's in their mind that the 4 of them had the experience to die in an earthquake. It's in their mind. It's no different than anything else we're talking about. You know, whether you have something pleasant happen to you, comes from your mind. It's the same thing. So granted, Haiti experienced the earthquake together, those people, some people died in it, some people didn't,
Yeah.
right? So the cause to die in the earthquake is in your mind, the cause not to die in the earthquake is in your mind. Right. It doesn't matter if because they're adopting these 2 girls and it's just the cause was there in their mind, right? Think about where else would it come from? And this is just relates in general, I want to say to everybody, to your suffering. When you're suffering, we really have to explore where do you think your suffering comes from? This is the crux of this course, because this is about dismantling your suffering. And the outside world doesn't think it comes from your mind. It comes from externals. Somebody's doing it to you, correct? Isn't that the way our external world thinks? Somebody's doing it to you. There's a God that's doing it to you. Some people believe that. Some people believe your boss is doing it to you. Some people believe it's a political regime and the leader of that regime is doing it to you. Is creating suffering, for instance, in the United States or in the Netherlands right? But isn't that the way the non-dharmic world thinks? Or please correct me if I'm, so you have to think about where it comes from.
Yeah, but Dharma world thinks it's coming from actions in earlier lives.
Yeah, comes from the mind, from your karma.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying where else, so please, please reflect on this evening. Many of you already have, where do you think your suffering comes from? What causes your suffering? Yeah, in the mind, but not everybody really believes that when you're really suffering. Okay, and sorry to say, and I hope this doesn't happen for anyone in here, you get a cancer diagnosis. Okay, this happens for a lot of people.
Yeah, but maybe the definition of mind is a way bigger concept than what I have been learned what mind is. Like when you are talking about mind, for me it's almost like a synonym for my thoughts. And if you then tell me all my suffering come from my thoughts, I have cancer because of my thinking, then it would be a bit strange to die in a
Earthquake
in Haiti. So maybe the definition of mind or the concept of mind is something way bigger than I've been taught all my life.
What do you think it is then, mind?
Yeah, it's something hard to grasp, but the only thing that if you would ask me, give another word for mind, I would say thoughts.
Consciousness? It's a synonym for mind, consciousness.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what you said is that cause of cancer, and let me, if I'm accurate, please correct me if I got it wrong, but you said, so that cause for the cancer, that cause to die in the earthquake came from my thoughts.
That doesn't feel right. So maybe I should see the mind as something different.
Okay.
then I have.
So what would feel right as far as where the cancer or the death and the earthquake comes from? What would feel right for you? Seriously. So this is what we have to think about.
Yeah,
This
that's
stuff we-
something difficult to really give that a name. Maybe people would call it fate based on, I do still believe in like karma, your actions that has consequences. Something like fate, some people,
FATE,
Yeah,
fate? Yeah,
yeah, fate.
okay,
yeah,
okay.
destiny.
Destiny?
Yeah,
Okay, where does that come from?
yeah, hard to say.
Randomness.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, somebody online?
Randomness.
Randomness?
Like,
It
I
is,
mean,
okay,
how can
so
an
is,
earthquake or rain or the sun coming up come from my mind? I really don't see that.
this is hard.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
what, so here's something I want you to think about tonight, okay? Is it fate, destiny, randomness, or karma?
Yeah.
No, but
What do you think? No, no, seriously, think about those words, fate, destiny. These are words we banter around a lot in our culture. And destiny, randomness. Yeah. Some people would use the word coincidence.
Yeah.
It was a coincidence, okay? Or karma, like that. And so really give some thought about where do you think, how do those things occur? This is hard because we're so, and I'm going to use this word. I don't usually tend to use this word. Aren't we a little bit brainwashed to think in a certain way based on our non-dharmic cultures?
Yeah, but that makes it difficult
Yeah.
to see new concepts.
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you're totally, this is turning your entire thinking upside down.
That's like the stirring in the water.
It's a
right?
stirring in the water and suddenly I have a murky glass of water that is not clear and I'm
Yeah.
confused and I don't understand this at all. And I don't want this. Now it's dirty. But that's what we have to do in our, you have to really challenge your thoughts to say, I thought my suffering came from this person. I don't like them. They make me, and check, you have to check that. Because when they go away, there's still suffering there, isn't there? And it just happens to manifest as another person or another regime or another disaster on the planet but please, this is this kind of stuff we have to check because we're going to still keep thinking forever and all time, even in our Dharma practice, that it's coming from outside our mind.
Yeah, with some things it's just easier to take it like, oh yeah, I understand that kind of suffering is coming from my mind, but when it comes to extreme examples or weather conditions, then it's like, "Ugh,
But if these other
it's
things
out of my
do,
hands."
then
Yeah.
why not the other? So
Yeah,
again,
definitely.
please give it some thought. Please give it some thought. So this is not easy, right? So please online, please do continue to think about this and think about those words. Is it already predestined and this is the way the planet's headed into
Mhm.
whatever, but did I have a handle in creating some of that individually, collectively? And then here's the other thing is, what can you do about it? What realistically can you do about it? So I'd love to hear some of those things tomorrow and please give it some thought and question. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Since long time.
Okay, so please, Sarah, yes.
Yes, I just I feel kind of compelled to share an experience I just had. Going from the Gompa home, I was doing the practice and observing, my comfort and my discomfort, the busyness in the city. People offered me a seat. I offered my seat. These kinds of things happened. But the whole time I was experiencing pain, which I have a lot of pain. But now just in the meditation, I had a relationship with the pain in my legs as though it was object. And what happened is it started to go away. The pain started to relieve, and I started to see the grasping of my mind in my identity with this pain experience, that it influences absolutely everything. And it's as though it became part of my identity. And during the meditation, what happened is it started to dissolve. Also, the experience of the pain, the attachment to the pain, to the location of the pain, it started to move. And I just found it very profound, and being able to be guided to do this and to carry this into just a daily life in a relationship, not just projecting onto the world, but also the projecting onto my own physical being and how I maintain that. And I just feel very moved and grateful. I wanted to share it.
Well, big hug to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Big hug to you. That's very, very moving. Very, very moving. I'm so happy to hear about some relief for you, some relief. But again, she's dismantling something in her mind.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So thank you for saying that. That's the kind of stuff that, so here's another thing we do. I want you to think about this. And I know somebody else other than CB had their hand up, but then they went away. I'm not sure if it was Vivian or anyway, Vivian, we can address, please. This is another thing you have to think about is we label something and go, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. How could that have happened, right? But because that's what got created in either your mind or a collective consciousness. And I'll give you one example that it was in my lifetime, but it was a long time ago. So the Berlin Wall came down.
Yeah.
Okay, in my lifetime, that happened. Now, when I was raised in the Cold War and blah, blah, and all these things, that seemed absolutely impossible that was going to shift, that would never happen. And then it happened, and people went, oh, it's a miracle. And it just, something got changed in the minds of the people in that world system. Those leaders at that time, the right conditions came together, created from people's minds, people's karma. Happens. Anything is possible because, think about this, anything is possible because everything's empty. Because everything's empty. Anything is possible. You know, because things lack an inherent concrete nature, okay? And they depend on other things. If you create the right causes in your consciousness, anything is possible. It's amazing. So it's very much about taking care of your mind. Like, and we see from Sarah, it's like stuff changes. It doesn't mean that her pain's not going to come back, and the next moment she, you know, it's you know, but it's just that unbelievable. I've seen people walk again. They were told by all the medical people, you will never walk again. You know, this is severed in your blah, 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 whatever. And something got shifted in their mind, and whatever created, and we go, it's a miracle. No, if the cause is there, the result will follow. No cause, no result. Positive cause, positive result. Negative cause, negative seed, negative result, suffering results. We have to keep thinking about it. So thank you.
I think what Sarah said about the relationship to her pain.
Yes.
Put it in a completely different perspective.
That's right.
That's the mental part.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not the difference between there's pain and there's suffering, but suffering is actually the mental.
That's right. Suffering is optional.
Mm-hmm.
We say suffering is optional. And when she also said, am I, you know, is my identity caught up with my pain? A lot of times it is. A lot of times it is, you know, and you suffer for so many years that you don't even know what it's like without the pain. And then you just become that as well.
Yeah.
In the mind, it's in the mind. That. Not that there isn't physical pain as well in the body, but very interesting. CB.
Yes, what I'm really struggling with is I have no problem understanding that however we experience the arousing of a basis comes from our karma. To me, that's it. I can get that. But what I'm really struggling with the concept that the arousing of the basis, not how we experience the arousing of the basis, but the arousing of the basis, like an earthquake. How is my karma, responsible, or how does my karma explains an earthquake? Or how does my karma explains that it's pouring rain today? That's why I'm having really difficulty with karma.
Yeah, it's very, again, it's so intricate and sophisticated. I couldn't say what, like, if we want to look at, I'm just going to give you an example of, okay, I happen to give in part of your packet, it says karmic correlations from the Wheel of Knives, the wheel sharp weapons. And this is a list that talks about your problem. Now, it doesn't relay all the problems in life, of course, but gives you some problems. It gives you the cause, potential causes, and then an antidote of what you could do to try to, like my friend who suffered from a lot of migraines, Rinpoche said it was the 10 non-virtues in previous lives, because she was very good in this life. But so she had to be very careful. She had a chart on her refrigerator, the 10 non-virtues, like with, so she was very conscious every day to practice those virtues, the antidotes to that, because that was one of her main teachings from her guru, from her teacher. So here's a thing of your body's, and I'll just read a couple, your body's stricken by some unbearable sickness. So you kind of go, well, what's that have to do with my mind? But here it says doing harm to the bodies of other people is the cause of that. So I couldn't say, CB, why is it raining today? There's mundane causes in our mind as well to experience certain more mundane weather conditions. An earthquake is a bigger disaster on the planet. You may be on the other side of the planet when an earthquake happens, so you're unaffected.
Yeah.
There's really no cause in your mind to experience that. But if you're in it, obviously some negative karmic seed, if your experience of that earthquake is suffering. Not everybody may have that experience. Now you'd say, obviously with an earthquake, it seems, but there's some people that, and I've been in many earthquakes, big and small, and there's some people that when it's happening and you feel it, but you feel like you're safe and you're in a safe place, and then it stops pretty quickly, you kind of go, and you look at your coworker and you go, well, that was a little ride. Like it's kind of a little fun thing, even though you don't know where the epicenter was and you don't know if somebody got blasted and has a building that came down on their head. So there's always a little bit of anxiety around it when you're in an earthquake. I used to live in San Francisco. We had lots of tremors, and at Laudo last summer, they had a 2015 earthquake, as we know, in Nepal. It was very bad. There were more tremors than I've ever felt up there. I was in earthquakes in Nepal, but there were lots of tremors that I noticed, so again, if it's something that creates suffering in your mind and disturbance in your mind, then the cause would be something negative in your mind. So I don't know if that helps, CB, because again, it's very hard to say specifically how did you experience this? How does it, arise from your mind?
No, again, the experience of the earthquake, I understand how it arises from the mind. My question is, does the earthquake itself, not how I experience it, does the earthquake itself arise from the mind? That seems to be what we're saying here. So if everything comes from the mind, then not only how I experience the earthquake, whether as a suffering or as, hey, it's a nice little ride, but the earthquake itself.
So Rinpoche would say, yes, that comes from your mind.
How?
Yeah,
I have no
that's the
idea.
question.
Yeah, I couldn't say, but some negative activity in the past would create that to occur. And all those people that are experiencing that earthquake would have that cause in their mind. And if they're experiencing trauma because of it, it would be a negative cause in the mind, is what karma says.
Mm-hmm.
But everything is experience.
And
Everything is experience. We don't know anything besides how we experience things.
Yeah.
Whether it's earthquake or
Yeah.
Otherwise it didn't happen.
or
right?
cup of coffee, there's nothing besides our experience.
right, but our experience of the mind, but you could also say, there's an earthquake I hear about on the other side of the world. I'm not really having a big experience. I hear about it, but that's also a result of karma, they'd say. Even for me to hear about it.
Even to hear is an experience.
Yeah, you could say that.
I have
Yes.
a question. So like in Buddhism, how you think about the events like Second World War or of all the Jewish being gassed? Like it's not one people, it's like a million of people or
6 million people, yeah.
the Palestinians right now in Gaza.
Yeah.
So what is the, what is it like? How can you justify? I mean, how does Buddhism sees that? Like,
So,
because 6 million people, bad karma. Like, I don't.
okay, so this is a big stretch, and this
Yeah.
has been talked about in classes, and it's very controversial, you know, especially with Jewish people that could be more sensitized, but you could say Rwandans, you could say Tibetans. I mean, there's many genocides,
Exactly.
you know, 6 million was a big one. That was a big one, but there's many genocides, and, you know, 1.3 million Tibetans killed, 800,000, you know, in Rwanda killed. What's going on with the Palestinians in Gaza is unbelievable tragedy. Syria, what went on there, what went on in Kosovo. Yeah, I mean, they're all over the planet. It's just, we can't seem to not destroy ourselves, right?
Yeah.
This is planet Earth. We're very tormented. We're very tormented right now. So what they'd say about all these things is collectively, for instance, let's just take Holocaust, you know, Nazi Germany. You get 6 million people. They weren't just Jews, but Catholics and gays and, you know, everybody, Roma people, all gas and everything. So collectively, they may have been part of an army that inflicted harm on a whole other people.
In
Okay.
the past,
In the past, in previous lives, could have happened. And so the Tibetans felt they had invaded China in like 8th or 9th century. The Tibetans had, whoever was living in Tibet at the time, had invaded China, 8th or 9th century. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said that was one of the causes for them to be invaded in the 1950s and lose their country by the communist Chinese. Now, I don't have that kind of mind to see, but a highly realized mind would say this is a part of the cause that creates it. So the same thing with the Jews. Now, the other thing that's really hard is looking at what the Jews are doing today in Israel. Now, they don't all agree with it. You know, I have 40 family members living in Israel right now, many of who have served in the IDF, you know, in the military but so most of them don't agree with the policies in Netanyahu, but they're living in the country, they're paying taxes, they're living there. Some of them don't have any other place to go, and they don't agree with what's happening, but you bear some of that karma. If your government, as an American, I bear the karma of my government going to war with other countries with some of my taxpayer, some of my tax dollars. And Kirti Sundar Moshe said that. He said, if you have a law that you have to pay the taxes, because we asked him, if it's going to war, do I need to pay my taxes? And he said, well, you'll have negative karma of stealing if you don't. He said, you should pay your taxes, but you need to understand that you are creating some negative karma if they're going to war with the money. So you do your purification practices. So on this planet, it's conflictive. It's a mix. So we have to do the best we can. But based on what the Jews are doing right now, and I'm not saying all the Jews, but I'm saying what the Israeli government has chosen to do with its military and killing so many people in a way now is creating a cause for that to come back to them. I'm sorry to say. It's ugly. The thing is really ugly, and not the people I know that are living there don't agree with the policies of the government. That's not getting into the media. What's getting into the media is stuff that creates division and sensationalism. So be very skillful about what you read and what you look at. The big news agencies, they're brainwashing us with garbage.
So it would be the same for the Palestinians right now, collectively.
They must have created something in the past, these people that have been bombed and killed and buildings falling down on their heads and their families destroyed. And they must have had the cause in their mind in a past life that created that. That's what Buddhism would say. Yeah, that's what karma would say. It's a hard one to swallow. And when you're teaching intro classes, as I've done at Kopan and Tushita, Dharamsala, when you get to the karma piece, a lot of the Israelis leave. It's very, very heavy for them. Over the years, they can't bear that they live in a country surrounded by people that want to drive them into the sea. They've had to serve mandatory military service. A lot of them have killed people in these, you know, it's very, very hard to swallow that you're perpetuating this. It would be hard to know where to go with that mind. And I just want to look on our list. I want to see if You suffer in the service of another whose authority is more. That's sometimes, okay, you suffer in the service of another whose authority is more. So let's say I'm living in the United States,
Yeah.
in a sense, the authority says we're going to war with this country. I don't agree, but I suffer from it. It honestly, it torments me, basically. And this, you know what the cause is? This is, again, could be the cause. Arrogance towards those who are less than you and forcing others to do your own work. That's a kind of mundane cause, but think about what, if you ever do that. Okay, arrogance towards those who are less than you. I've had that in my mind. I've definitely had those thoughts in the past, right? And forcing others to do your work. I probably have done that like years ago. I can think of, you know, so you don't realize those little things that you just kind of offhand. Now, it's not about forcing others to do work when, you know, that's their job and they're like a secretary for me and but I'm not forcing them to do it. But if I'm really forcing somebody to do this thing that I'm supposed to be doing and you clean the toilet out and I, you know, you just kind of have to. What's that?
Slavery in the past.
And slavery in the past, it would certainly be talking about that, but I'm just talking about things we've actually done in this life. I can own that. I've done that, right? But then it says, it always gives you an antidote. Okay, force your own body and life into the service of others. So I want to very much take care of that then and really try to do it nicely and compassionately and wholeheartedly. And it might start changing that, shifting that a little bit. You know, and the more people that practice that way, that creates things like the Berlin Wall coming down. Suddenly some really good thing happens. There's a lot of good things happening on the planet. They're not being reported in the media. God forbid we should hear any good stuff, but there's good things happening. There are good things happening. So I was just trying to think of things about more natural disasters and things to see if there's something that, but it's interesting, excuse me, of what these, just look at some of these correlations. Just seeing if there's anything about disasters. I don't see anything that's directly about, but
May I ask where you're looking?
yeah, we sent out to you, there's a list. It is 3 pages long. And it's called, the title is Karmic Correlations from the Wheel of Knives. So have a look at that sheet tonight. Karmic correlations, what it does is it gives you, there's 3 columns, problem, cause, and antidote.
Share the screen because I don't.
Yeah, I can share right here.
It seems the people who came through Luxor have not received it. I just sent it to one.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you see that, can you see this? Yeah. So just giving you a, so have a look at this and lots, did you send it out to them, Sylvie, or you're gonna?
I sent it through CD because apparently he did not receive.
Okay.
Through Luxor, but I don't know what.
Okay, great. So this way, have a look at this tonight. It should be in the OneDrive that Lizette posted.
Yeah.
And let us know, but it's interesting if you have stuff like, you know, you find yourself without anyone to help you, no friends of your own. Some people have loneliness, you know, and here the, you know, cause could be leading away those who are close to another. You know, so interfering with people that are, you know, you're trying to pull, and then it gives you an antidote. Don't act in a way that makes others lose the ones that are close to them. You know, it's, so there's different things, you know, about, I think one of the things we were, yeah, here's the one, you hear unpleasant words from others, mistakes you, but divisive talk. There's some people I know, there was somebody I worked in an office with 30 people, and in the lunchroom, we had a lunchroom there and people would eat. And there was one woman who was just so divisive with her speech, constantly driving people apart, like something we call in the States instigators, antagonizers. Like they would kind of say, hey, Sylvie, did you know that Yenny said this about you? But, you know, and then you'd be like, what? You know, and it's evil to do stuff like that. And so it always creates that you're going to be criticized or be in a divisive office. And I remember when I got into the Dharma, And I thought I'd been in a couple divisive offices and I thought, I want to be really clean about that with my speech. I don't want to be, and then it changed, you know. But so it's interesting if you look at something and something you identify as this always happens to me, look at the cause and then look at the antidote of what you can do. Like that.
Can I ask something?
Yes,
It's about the collective karma.
yes,
It's easy to think, oh, I'm safe here in the Netherlands in my nice apartment close to the sea. And it's their own fault because they created the karma to be in a war or whatever, to
yeah.
have a disease. What's the antidote against that? Well, because I'm not different from them, but I'm just.
And what's the antidote against, what did you say?
Thought.
The
It's
thought?
their own fault.
So, well, the thought pops up and then for me, I just noticed that I'm not comfortable with that thought myself.
Yeah,
Like to say, oh, well, it's their fault. Like, because where's my compassion?
Yeah.
You know, so what happens is, and there's some friends of mine that said they can't look at the news anymore. It's too tragic and sad and depressing. But the thing is, it gives me things to meditate on. Like I do Tonglen a lot with the news stories. Like I'll go, oh my God, you know, earthquake here. And they just had, and then I'll go, okay, for me, it's a little bit of like, who am I praying for today? Now you're praying for everybody. I mean, for me, I'm always trying, I have a big list. And however, I like some very current things that I feel like I can send some energy to. I don't know anybody in some of these earthquake places. I don't know anybody in Myanmar right now, but I can think about people. I have been there, so I can kind of think about and just direct a little thing of taking that energy from all these poor people and people searching for survivors. What a horrible thing to have to, you know, and let me take it. And so doing a Tonglen, a taking and giving practice. If some of you are familiar with Tonglen, we can also do in here. We're going to do in the Lojong class Tuesday nights, but that's something where, and it helps me counter that thought of, well, it's not my problem and too bad for them and they created it. It's more like, okay, wait a minute. I want to grow compassion in my heart because I could easily be in that situation. And I've been in that situation before because of beginningless mind. We've been in all situations. So, oh my goodness, you know, and work on countering that. If you notice that that's a thought you have a lot, you know, so initially you might have to force a little bit where that thought keeps coming up and then keep moving it into with Tonglen and your compassion and, you know, yeah, because some people have, so again, and you don't want to be like, we've done this at centers with new Dharma practitioners that come to live and work at our centers. And then, you know, you'll get somebody else, another practitioner, and they start suffering from something and you go, you know, well, you created the cause for that. So, you know, 'cause a new person won't understand that and they'll just be suffering. And so we always have to gently kind of, if somebody's a long-term practitioner, we can certainly say that to them. And some of my friends, when we talk about stuff, will go, well, wow, that was really purification. The other thing is it is a type of purification. Anytime we suffer, but we don't want to ram that in someone's face who is new. Oh, good purification for you. When they're just suffering from a really bad flu, or they just had a car accident, or they got a cancer diagnosis. But for stronger practitioners, long-term practitioners, some of them do look at it that way, like, oh, this is really great. I wanted this. I was praying for the suffering to come because I'm purifying. And some of them can be quite happy in that mind stream. You're not being a masochist. You're not asking for more suffering. But when it comes, because this is samsara, it will come. How am I going to deal with it? And some people really use it for purification. You know, I went through, before I came here, I was.
Stop sharing the screen because they
Yes.
see.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, so experiencing an earthquake would be a ripening of multiple bad karma from people affected. Yes. Okay. Okay. Person's karma to be. Yeah, it is the case that it's a person's karma to be at that particular place at exactly that time. Absolutely, it comes from karma. Okay, I think I got all those questions. Yes.
Now I was just wondering, a person that is born very rich and lives until 100 and life is super easy and just can just enjoy the wealth and stuff, means he or she had very good karma.
Good karma in the past, and they're also using up a lot of merit.
Yeah.
Living that life.
They are
Using up a lot of merit, a lot of positive energy. It's a little bit like a God realm. So we have 6 realms of
Yeah.
cyclic existence,
Uh-huh.
3 lower realms, 3 upper realms. There's 2 God realms, upper, and the humans, which is us, are the lower part of the upper realm.
Mhm.
So this is the
Yeah.
best rebirth, human, because we have a balance of suffering and leisure. Okay? So the suffering motivates us to practice. The leisure affords us the time and space to practice. Okay? So the 2 God realms, one is a jealous God realm, one is a hedonistic God realm. So if you're living that kind of life, you might be a human,
Yeah.
but you're kind of, the more pleasure you experience and the more ease and all that. So I would say it's wonderful to have that. Use it wisely. Use the time wisely to practice Dharma, rather than just allowing it to burn up and just engaging in hedonistic pleasures all the time.
Because in next life.
You might be having
Got
less,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
You might be going down because you've used up so much positive energy. Okay, let me just, in the 15 minutes we have,
There's one more question by Manita linked to this.
Sure.
About the karma we enjoy, like the pleasure. What can we do to not wear the good karma out?
just creating virtue and doing your Dharma practice, creating more virtue and making sure you've got a lined up practice of how can I really set up a daily meditation practice, use it wisely. What are the best ways to engage in the courses? What level of courses to do it, and really put that all together. Does that make sense, Manita? That's what we need to do. So this center can advise you. I've set up practices of all the preliminary things for people. I have a sheet now of like what kinds of things that, and I'm a bit of the style of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, so I'm going to be advising from that area of prayers and practices and meditations that basically I'm convinced work for your mind and set you up for a really rich, consistent Dharma practice. So I'd highly recommend if you can do.
Thank you.
Sure. So I want to talk about, Madhyamaka talks about Lakpe Kungzam. My pronunciation is not great, but the wrong, all obscuring thought. The wrong, all obscuring thought. What is that about? Of right, and there's right thought and wrong, all obscuring thought. This is the wrong one, obviously. So when the mind, like when your mind experiences a magician's trick, you're watching a magic show, okay? And you see something, but it doesn't really exist that way, okay? That's the wrong, all obscuring thought. It's like that, okay? It's the same for a dream, okay? The dream, you know, it doesn't exist, but when you're in it, it appears as real.
What is obscuring in Dutch?
Covering, hiding, what would you say obscuring? Okay, got the word, okay. Thank you. In ordinary people view, that's our view of, ordinary person, it's seen as wrong, whereas things again appear as truly existent, okay, is a right view for us. Like that's what things appear for us, okay? So worldly people believe that the thought is correct, that it's a correct view, okay? This truly existent view. We think it's correct. But in the view of the Aryas, those are people that have had a direct perception of emptiness. Arya beings, noble beings, and Buddhas, those who, again, realize emptiness, see things as illusions and dreams. So what worldly people believe to be the right view for them is the wrong view. True existence is wrong, okay? But that's the way we see things, and that's how we interpret reality, act in reality, experience reality. Okay, so I just wanted to make a distinction. So again, for the Arya beings and Buddhas, true existence is wrong view for them. but for worldly people, it's right. Okay. We believe it's totally true. We believe that's right. Okay. And so this right all obscuring thought is in relation to the view of worldly people. That's really technically a wrong all obscuring thought. And this just comes up in the course. That's why I wanted to mention. And Rinpoche also goes on that there's an immediate creation in your mind, okay, which is how your mind, and this might relate a little bit, CB, okay, how your mind creates phenomena, okay? There's an immediate creation in the mind. Now, I have asked lamas, I've asked 5 times, I think now, how does the karma get imprinted? Like, how does it create that result? And nobody's answered me. I think for them, it's kind of an automatic, it just happens somehow. Or you need a highly realized mind to understand that process. But this is one thing from Rinpoche, there is immediate creation, which is how your mind creates phenomena. So there must be an imprint immediately, something imprinted by it's happening this moment for all of us. Every time we think, see, have an experience, a thought. Okay, the things that appear to you. So everything that appears to me, there's an immediate creation. Okay, and then Rinpoche goes on, but there's also something he calls long run evolution, the long-term effect that comes from your karma. So the karma, and this is something to think about tonight when we think about fate, destiny, randomness, coincidence, and karma. Okay, so there's a long-running experience that's in there, created from all the past things that went on and creating the next moments, the results. And Rinpoche goes on, what I was saying before, he keeps repeating that it came from your karma, from your mind. Okay. So what I'd like to do is stop there, and I'm going to go into how do some of the things ripen. We talk about this standard karmic classes, a fully ripened result, an environmental result similar to the cause. I want to go into that tomorrow and have you really understand. So we're going to stop there. We're going to do our dedication prayers. Any last questions? Karma we enjoy, what can we do to not wear the good karma out? So, and that's what I meant, Manita, is to continue to create virtue, know what virtue is. So we're going to look at those 10 virtues, the ones I've given you today, work on those and see what do I need? Like, why is it that I find that I steal or that I lie? What causes? You have to look at, and there's meditations you can do on that, especially in the Discovering Buddhism courses of karma, where you want to look at your motivation, why I feel it's okay to take something at my friend's house without asking them. Now, you might have a friend who's like, you know it will be okay, but did you ask them? Did they say, help yourself to anything in the house? Or did you go in and take that favorite food from the cabinet when they weren't in there? And, so little things like that. So again, if we're practicing the virtue, which is taking care of my belongings, having respect for my other people's belongings, making sure I ask first, not taking what isn't offered, that's going to help. So again, look at all those 10 virtues I meant, non-virtues I mentioned, and look at the antidotes and look at the karmic correlation thing as well. And just, we want to keep creating good situations, positive, layering the positive imprints in our mind. Okay. Our dedication prayers. Figure out where to keep them so I can easily access them. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, the dedication prayers. I would like to please let's dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from this time together. And thank you so much online and in person for your wonderful questions and your participation. And may we dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from our time, whatever merit, to our having a deeper understanding of not only karma, but how everything comes from our mind, be able to really continue to work with that to build a rich, consistent Dharma practice. And may it help us reach enlightenment quickly so we can be of the most benefit to all living beings. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and may it especially cause the essence of perfect pure Losangdrapa's teachings to shine forever. Short mandala offering. Saji Peki Juche Meto Tram Rira Bingzi Nidengam Pati Sange Zindu Mide Uwagi Drogun Namda Jin La Chu Parjo Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kamirata Yami. Ogewadi Nyorduna Lama Sange Drogyorne Drowa Chikyang Malupa Dei Sala Gubarsho Jiangju Sencho Rinpoche Ma Ke Panyam Ge Gyurji Ke Panyam Pa Me Pa Yi Gone Gondu Belwarsho. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. And let's do this dedication. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization, may be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I promise to pray, all those whose names have been given to me, may be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. And this meditation, dedication with emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, whom completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, whom completely empty of existing from my own side. For the long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And we'll do here's Rinpoche, the prayer for Rinpoche to return. So even though Rinpoche has been said to have taken rebirth in Nepal, I think this can create a positive outcome for that rebirth, to have the perfect manifestation perfect family, no obstructions to his education, to completing all that, to resume his position as spiritual director of the FPMT and all of our centers. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth, the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So also dedicating for our planet and for all the wars on the planet to be ended immediately, for all those suffering in various ways, may their suffering be eased immediately and completely, and for the great flourishing of all of our centers and harmony at all of our centers, especially Maitreya Institute. Thank you so much. And remember, everything comes from your mind. Have a good evening and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.